Morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Who is presenting?
Komal.
Komal. Okay. All of you keep your video on and Komal, you start presenting.
So 50-year-old gentleman, daily wage
Share
laborer.
share your presentation.
Yes, sir, yes.
We make it full screen. Okay.
Gentleman, daily wage laborer, resident of Rohtas, Bihar, presented to OPD with chief complaint of swelling along vein in left lower limb for 15 years, ulcer above ankle for 10 years, pain during walking for 10 years. History of present illness. As stated by patient, he was apparently asymptomatic 15 years back when he developed swelling along vein in left lower limb, which was insidious in onset, which started above ankle and later progressed to thigh. Swelling was present on medial aspect of thigh, leg and thigh. The swelling gets aggravated on standing and walking and relieved on lying down. Patient also complains of ulcer above left ankle for 10 years, which was insidious in onset and associated with itching and pigmentation of skin. Patient also complains of pain in left lower limb for 10 years. Pain was insidious in onset, gradually progressive, dull aching pain, and occurs towards the end of day, which aggravated on walking and relieved on lying down. No history of pain and swelling in calf associated with fever. No history of prolonged immobilization. Then past history. No history of hypertension, diabetes.
Go back to the last slide. Why did you ask the history of prolonged immobilization?
So to rule out the deep venous thrombosis. This is
How
a
the
risk.
deep vein thrombosis is correlated with the varicose veins?
So deep vein thrombosis can cause the due to the obstruction, then it will lead to the superficial vein varicosity. Obstruction to the flow of the blood will lead to the varicosity to the superficial vein.
So, what type of the varicose vein will develop
Or secondary.
in a patient who has got DVT? It will be secondary type.
Yes, sir.
So, tell what are the other causes of the secondary varicose veins?
So it may be due to the long standing or any abdominal mass, obesity,
Long
pregnancy.
standing is not the secondary variety, you know. That is the primary type of the varicose veins. Long standing is the primary.
So
But what are
atriovenous
the
fistula, atriovenous fistula,
arteriovenous fistula
and
and
abdominal mass,
any abdominal mass, especially the pelvic mass. You know?
the pelvic mass, any chronic cough, constipation.
Now, chronic cough and constipation are again the primary variety. You know? They are not the secondary variety. Secondary variety is because of some obstruction somewhere. Okay.
Yes.
So there is a deep vein thrombosis is there, or there is a arteriovenous fistula because of high flow which is there. If the patient has got the abdominal tumor, or there is a pelvic tumor is there, or a female who is pregnant because the gravid uterus. Okay, so there can be the secondary. While the others which you are telling, they are mainly the primary causes for that. You know, wherever there is increased pressure is there, which can lead to the destruction of the walls and to the endothelium. So they are all the primary variety.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Next slide.
So past history. No history of hypertension, diabetes mellitus, tuberculosis, or chronic cough. History of surgery for right inguinal hernia 7 years back. Personal history. History of cigarette smoking since 15 years, 2 to 3 cigarettes per day. Bladder and bowel habit regular. Sleep appetite normal.
Okay.
Family history. No history of similar complaints in family. Treatment history. History of compression elastic bandage application for 10 to 12 times. Patient was examined in well lit room with the
First summarize your history.
50-year-old gentleman, 50-year-old man was swelling presented with swelling along vein in left lower limb on the medial aspect of leg and thigh, ulcer above for 15 years, and ulcer above ankle for 10 years, and pain during walking for 10 years. Um, Patient was has a history of cigarette smoking.
So based on this summary, what will be your diagnosis?
So it is the where great softness vein varicosity.
Varicose veins of the left lower limb,
Left lower limb.
probably of the great
Great softness.
saphenous vein varicosity. And can you classify only based on the history that what is the SEEP classification here?
So see, so if here is great healed ulcer due to the present with ulcer. That means ki the C5 clinical manifestation. And
It
there
is a
is
healed ulcer.
yes sir presented with
It is the active ulcer or the healed ulcer?
so healed ulcer because there is no discharge from the ulcer.
It's a healed ulcer. Okay, so healed ulcer will be
C5.
C5, you know.
Yes sir. Or etiology primary because
Mhm.
there is no obstructive cause, and
Right.
CEA. So A will be I will tell after examination.
But you can say
Is a
probably
superficial.
because it is on the medial side,
It will
so
be
it will be probably the
AS.
yeah, it will be of the great saphenous vein, you know.
Yes, sir.
Anatomical will be great saphenous vein. You know, whether it is below knee or whether it is above knee, you know, that you can say that whether it is A or B, great saphenous vein. And then P, what is P here?
So due to the reflux.
Reflux.
Yeah.
So more likely it is probably a reflux.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
only based on the history only you can make a SEEP classification in majority of the cases. Go ahead with the examination.
Patient was examined in well-lit room with informed consent. Patient was cooperative and well-oriented to time, place, and person with vitals afebrile, pulse 88 per minute, regular, rhythmic, and normovolumic, blood pressure 114 by 76 mm of Hg, respiratory rate 16 per minute, thoraco-abdominal, uh, BMI 25 kg per meter square.
Next.
General physical examination, pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy absent, pedal edema present on left limb, JVP not raised. Inspection, dilated examination of left lower limb inspection, dilated incause and tortuous vein present over the medial aspect of left leg and thigh, localized swelling around the left ankle present, pigmentation present around the ankle and foot, an ulcer of size 4 into 3 cm present above medial malleolus with pale granulation tissue. No active discharge. Scarred area around ulcer present.
Okay. Next.
Palpation. No local rise of temperature. No tenderness along course of veins and calf. Brody Tenderberg test. Test 1 positive. Incompetent saphenofemoral junction. Test 2 positive. Perforator incompetence present. Multiple
Tell that
tourniquet.
what is tell about what is the Brody Tenenberg test. How do you do that?
So for body Tenderberg test, we ask the patient to lie down, and then we ask the patient to elevate the leg, and first we will milking the vein, and then we tie the tourniquet just below the saphenofemoral junction, and we'll ask the patient
How,
to.
how do you know where is the saphenofemoral junction?
So saphenofemoral junction is 3.5 centimeter lateral below and lateral to the pubic tubercle.
How do you know where is the pubic tubercle?
So I will ask the patient to duck the leg against the resistance, and I will trace the adductor longest till I reach the pubic tubercle.
Any other way to know where is the pubic tubercle?
Sorry, sir, I don't know.
Anybody else can answer? I asked everyone to keep your video on so that I can recognize and ask the question. Ujjwal, Ujjwal,
Yes, sir.
Ujjwal, give the answer for that. You are here in the class, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So tell what is the
So,
answer for that. Do you know how to know about the pubic tubercle? Keep your video on first.
sir, pubic tubercle, sir, say it can be palpated, so lateral to the pubic symphysis.
Right. So you can start from the pubic symphysis, come laterally, and you find a globular type of the bony swelling. So that is the pubic tubercle. Any other way? Priyanshu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other way?
Don't know, sir.
Muskan?
Yes, sir. Sir, I don't know.
Okay. So you can do that. You can start from the anterior superior iliac spine and go medially along the inguinal ligament. And the first bony globular structure which you find is the pubic tubercle. Okay. So for knowing where is the pubic tubercle, you can make the adductor longus tendon taut. Second, you can start from the pubic symphysis and come laterally to the pubic tubercle, or you can start from the anterior sphenic spine and go medially to the pubic tubercle. Anurag, how do you find where is the anterior sphenic spine? Anybody else can answer that?
So it can be palpated easily, so on the anterior side.
So how will you palpate?
So we will run our fingers along the iliac crest, and when there is a dip in the bony prominence, that exact point will be our anterior superior iliac spine.
Right. So that is one way, that you go through the iliac crest, come anteriorly, and wherever there is a dip is there, that is the anterior spine. Other way to palpate for the anterior spine?
Sir, we can palpate from the right iliac fossa to the lateral side, the prominence will feel of the anterior superior iliac spine.
Yeah, that is another way, but usually because that you will be reaching up to the iliac crest only by that. So again, you have to trace the iliac crest and come anteriorly, and you can feel for the anterior spine. Other way is that you start from the lateral side of the thigh. Okay, so anterolateral, you put your thumb there and go up on the anterolateral aspect of the thigh. And the first bony prominence you feel is the anterior spine. Okay, so that is the other way to feel for the anterior spine. Okay. So what you will do now, Komal, for the Brody tendon test? What you will do? You are muted. Komal, you are muted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, I will tie the tourniquet just below the saphenofemoral junction. I'll ask the patient to stand up, and I will release the tourniquet just immediately. If the feeling will occur from above, it means the saphenofemoral junction is incompetent. For the test 2, I will tie the tourniquet. I will do the same test. I will ask the patient to lie down and then elevate the leg, and I will milking. I will do the milking of the vein, and then tie the tourniquet at just below the saphenofemoral junction, and ask the patient to stand. And after 2 to 3 minutes, I will look for the. I will look in the for the lower leg feeling. If there will a feeling will occur, it means the perforator are incompetence. And then I'll release the tourniquet. If feeling also occur from the above, it means the saphenofemoral junction is incompetent.
Okay. So for carrying out the Brody tendon bug test, if you have to do it 2 times, so it will be better that you, because this is a cumbersome procedure, you have to first make the patient lie, then elevate the limb, empty the veins, then apply the tourniquet, and then ask the patient to stand to see for that. So it will be better that after you have tied the tourniquet, you have made the patient stand. Do not open the tourniquet immediately. You wait for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then you can check for the test tube, for the perforator which is there, whether the perforators are filling up or not. So you waited for 1 to 2 minutes, check for that, and you find either it is there or not there. Then you open the tourniquet at the saphenofemoral junction. Okay, and then you can see for whether there is saphenofemoral incompetence is there or not. So to say it is a patient is having the saphenofemoral incompetence, there has to be a fast filling from up down. Normal veins, they fill slow from below up. But in the case of if there is a saphenofemoral incompetence is there, it will be filling from up down there. Okay. Right. So what happened in this patient?
So both
It was
the
positive. Test 1 was positive and test 2 is also positive. Okay, right. Then next test, what was done?
Multiple tourniquet tests. Perforator incompetence seen below knee and lower leg.
How do you do that? Misha,
So-
tell how do you do the
so-
multiple to let the Misha tell. Misha, tell how do you do the multiple tourniquet
Sir,
test?
Sir, in multiple tourniquet test, we tie tourniquets both above and below the perforator. So first we lied on the patient and we milk the
How
veins.
do you know there how many perforators are there in the limb?
So 100 to 150 perforators are there in each.
So-
So there are few named perforators also.
So how many tourniquets you will apply?
So first we'll see any depressions along the veins to find the incompetent perforators. Then along those perforators are both above and below we'll tie the tourniquet. And then
How will you know
we'll
that?
see-
How do you know
by,
about the perforator?
So by Figan's method, so we will find out for any depression along the veins while milking them.
But usually you do not. You can do the Figan's method to find out, but it is sometimes very you may only find only 1 or 2 perforators which are there. Okay. So the classical is that you have to apply at least 2 tourniquet above the knee and 3 to 4 tourniquet below the knee. So around 5 to 6 tourniquets are applied, and this is for the main perforators which are there. You know where are these main perforators?
So one
What
is
is the
at
common
the
site of the main perforator?
So one is at the saphenofemoral junction. Then one is the Hunterian perforator, so which is at the thigh.
Right.
So then above the thigh it is dot. Below the knee, sorry, above the knee it's dot. Below the knee boiled. So in the leg there are 3 pocket perforators, and then May perforator is at the heel.
So you apply the 3 tourniquets which are there in the leg, usually at 5 centimeter, 10 centimeter, and 15 centimeter above the medial malleolus.
Yes, sir.
So 3 tourniquets in the leg, 5 centimeter, 10 centimeter, and 15 centimeter from the medial malleolus. Then one can be applied below the knee. Second is applied above the knee at the Hunterian's perforator, and one at the saphenofemoral junction.
Femoral. Yes.
So yeah, so these are the classical sites. So 5 to 6 perforators, the tourniquets are applied, and then what you do after application of the tourniquet?
So then
What you
we
do?
ask the patient to stand up, and then we after tying the tourniquet, we ask the patient to stand up, and then we see if there is filling present or not. if the filling is present, then that perforate below that perforator, then that perforator is incompetent.
So what you do to the tourniquets?
So we oh, so we let them tied up. So one by one we open the tourniquet from above to below.
They are open from below up.
No, below also.
They are not open above down. It is from below up. So the lowest tourniquet will be opened first,
Yes.
and then you will see if there is filling
For
of
the
the veins is there or not. Then you will open the second one. So wherever in between the tourniquets you find there is a filling of the vein is there, it means that particular perforator is incompetent.
Yes.
Okay. Komal, then what is the next test?
So next test is modified Perthes test, that is negative.
Ananya, what is modified Perthes test and what is Perthes test? Ananya,
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir.
open your video.
Yes, sir. So,
Hmm.
so modified Perthes test is to the Perthes test is to assess the patency of the deep femoral vein, and sir, it is done by applying a tourniquet at the level of the saphenofemoral junction, and sir, I do not remember completely.
Anybody else who can answer?
So in modified Perthes test, we tie the tourniquet just below the saphenofemoral junction without milking of the vein and ask the patient to walk. If there will be swelling or any bursting pain in calf muscle, it means the deep venous thrombosis has occurred.
So in the modified Perthes test, you apply a tourniquet below the saphenofemoral junction without milking the veins. And then you ask the patient to stand and walk. After walking, if the deep veins are patent, then the varicosity will disappear. But if the deep veins are not patent, then varicosities will become more prominent and the patient will have lot of pain. There will be bursting pain will be there. Okay, so that is the modified Perthes test. And the Perthes test is where you use the Ashmark bandage, which is here. So you apply the Ashmark bandage all over the limb, and then you ask the patient to walk, and the patient will have the severe pain in the leg if the deep veins are not patent. So this is a test to check for the deep veins, whether that is patent or not. Okay, go to the next one. Next slide. What is Schwartz test?
So Schwartz test positive. In Schwartz test, we put the one hand on the saphenofemoral junction and other hand at the level of ankle on the varicose vein. We tap the vein at the lower end and palpate the thrill over the saphenofemoral junction. We can palpate. We can tap the vein at the saphenofemoral junction or palpate at the level of. We can palpate the thrill over the varicose vein over the above the ankle.
So in which case it will be positive? Schwartz test.
So it is positive in superficial vein varicosity or edema.
There is a gross varicosity is there.
Gross.
Okay. If there is a gross varicosity of the long saphenous system is there, which you can clinically also see that there will be grossly dilated vein which is there. In that case, this Schwartz test may be positive. Okay. Then
Figan's test, defect palpable in deep fascia at the mid thigh and multiple points on the leg.
so how do you do that Figan's test?
So first we will ask the patient to lie down and then mark the course of the great saphenous vein and also the perforators present in the limb, and then palpate for the competency of the deep fascia. over the perforators?
First, you have to do the marking of the veins.
Yes.
So marking of the vein will be done in the standing posture, because in the lying down posture, the veins may disappear. So you will always do it in the standing posture first, and then you make the patient lie down and empty the veins, and then at the mapped site where you have marked the veins, you will start palpating, and you can find the defect in the deep fascia. So always do the marking, the standing position, then make the patient lie down, empty the veins, and then palpate, and you can find the defects. So those are the defects for the incompetent perforators. Okay. What's the next?
Next, Morse cuff cuff impulse test positive.
What is that?
So in this, I put the thumb on the saphenofemoral junction and ask the patient to cuff and feel for the impulse over the saphenofemoral junction.
So this is, so what condition it will be if you are able to find out the cuff impulse there? What is the name of that condition? So this is called as saphenavarics. This will be called as saphenavarics. And this is one swelling which gives rise to the cuff impulse. You know, what are the other swellings? Puneet, can you tell what are the various swellings which can have the cuff impulse? Okay, anybody else can tell?
In hernia, inguinal hernia, or
Yes, inguinal hernia. Good.
Sir, in femoral hernia.
Any hernia, any external hernia will give rise to. So whether it is a femoral hernia, or whether it is a umbilical hernia, or whether it is a paraumbilical hernia, so all the hernias, external hernias, will give rise to the cuff impulse. So apart from the hernias, what are the other swellings where you can get the cuff impulse?
So if there is any cyst in the skin, skin cysts.
Mohit, open your video. I want to see your face.
So if there is any cyst in the skin.
Which cyst will give rise to the cuff impulse?
So if it is any swelling in the skin with cyst, in pleural empyemas.
Pleural empyemas. What is that called as specifically? You know, for demonstration of the cuff impulse, there has to be a increase in the pressure. Okay. So why we get the inguinal hernia? If it is there, you get a cuff impulse, because there is increase in the intra-abdominal pressure is there, and because of that,
there is direct transmission.
You can have the, yes, okay. So tell, okay, starting from the head to the limbs, tell what are the various causes of the positive cuff impulse. Can you get something in the head to give the cuff impulse?
So, meningomyelocele.
Okay, so you can have the meningomyelocele will be in the spine, in the spine. But like if there is head, what is that called as?
Encephalocele.
Like we call the myelocele. So in the head, what it will be called as?
Encephalocele.
Encephalocele. So in encephalocele, you can get the increased cuff impulse. Now, can you get a cuff impulse in the neck?
So I don't know.
Okay, in the neck, if anything related to the larynx is there. Okay, so that is specifically called a laryngocele. That there is swelling arising from the larynx. So that is the laryngocele can give rise to the cuff impulse. In the chest, can you get the cuff impulse?
So in empyema.
Empyema. Which empyema? That is, empyema is a intrapleural thing, that it is inside the pleural
Pleural
cavity.
empyema.
No, that is empyema, that it is in the pleural cavity. But what can happen if it is out of the pleural cavity? What is that called as? So this empyema can come out in the subcutaneous tissue. Okay, so that is called as a empyema necessitans. Empyema necessitans.
Okay.
Okay, so in that you can get the patient has got the cuff impulse. And then in the abdomen, I told various types of hernias are there. So what are the other cuff impulses which can be there in the inguinal-scrotal area?
So varicocele.
Yes, varicocele. Okay. So varicocele can also give rise to the cuff impulse. But there is a difference between a cuff impulse of a hernia and the varicocele. You know what are the different types of cuff impulse?
So some are reducible and spontaneously, and some remain on its own for a long time.
There are two types of cuff impulse. One is called an expansile cuff impulse. Another is a non-expansile cuff impulse. So expansile cuff impulse is in hernia. Okay, so in that case, you will find that when you put your finger there, it expands. Apart from feeling of that impulse which is there, it expands. So that is the expansile cuff impulse that you get in the case of a hernia. While in the case of a
Varicocele.
varicocele, you will feel the impulse, but it will not be expansile. So that is a non-expansile cuff impulse. Okay, similarly, in the varicocele, you can have in the lymph also. So if there is a lymph varix is there, you can get the cuff impulse. And as I was telling about the veins which are there, where there is a saphenous varix is there, you will also get the cuff impulse. So these are the various swellings which can give rise to the cuff impulse. Okay. Komal, go ahead.
Distal pulsation, dorsalis pedis and posterior tibial pulse is palpable. Examination of right lower limb normal.
Okay.
Systemic examination, nervous system, higher mental functions are normal. Power in all limbs are 5/5. Reflexes are normal. Cardiovascular system, S1, S2 heard normally. No murmur present.
Yeah, next.
Respiratory system, trachea could not be appreciated. Bilateral air entry clear. No added sounds present. Per abdomen, abdomen is soft and non-tender. No lump palpable.
In this slide, go back to the last slide. Yeah. Okay, here the respiratory system, the trachea could not be appreciated. That you should not tell in the examination. Okay, that is a wrong thing which has come here. Okay, if you have to just tell about the respiratory system, you can say that expansion of chest is normal, bilateral air entry is normal, and there are no adventitious sounds are there. Okay, so this should not be mentioned. This is a wrong thing which has been mentioned. That trachea could not be appreciated. You will never feel for the trachea in the respiratory system unless you are specifically having any respiratory pathologies there. Then you will say. Otherwise, you simply say the chest expansion is normal, bilateral air entry is normal, and there are no added or the adventitious sounds are there. Now, in the per abdominal examination, abdomen is soft, non-tender, no lump palpable. Okay, what else should we tell in the abdominal examination here? Okay, distal rectal examination you can tell about the distal rectal examination or any pathology, either the prostate pathology is there or any other lump which is there, that you can say in the per abdominal examination. Go to the next slide.
So,
Yeah.
summary: 50 years male with dilated and ingots veins in left lower limb for 15 years, with ulcer over ankle for 10 years, and pain on walking for 10 years. Cigarette smoker and BMI of 25.0. On examination, Trendelenburg test 1 and 2 are positive. No signs of deep venous thrombosis with palpable distal arterial pulses.
Now tell Komal, what are the things you have missed in the examination? What are the
Sir,
various things you have missed in the examination?
So for pigmentation,
You have to tell about the pigmentation. What you want to tell in the pigmentation?
it is present in the varicose vein. It is the complication of the varicose vein.
No, but if there is a pigmentation is there, what things you want to tell? Okay, extent of the pigmentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Because pigmentation may be of different extent, and it may be just a patchy pigmentation may be there. This pigmentation may be only confined to the ankle area, or it may be going up to the calf region or the leg region. It may be complete pigmentation may be there. It may be extending even up to the thigh sometimes. So in the pigmentation, you have to tell about. Now, sometimes along with the pigmentation, there can be what is called as the atrophy blanchi. What is that?
So
You know what is atrophy blanchi?
yes, sir. There is a hypopigmented area around the reticular, around the thread veins.
Yeah. So you can find the areas of the hypopigmentation along with the small veins which are there, maybe surrounding that. So that is called as atrophy blanchi. What other things you have missed in the telling in the examination?
So any dilatation of the small veins like dermal flares.
Yeah, that you could have told. That does the patient has got any spider veins or there, or the reticular veins which are there or not, which are not the varicose veins but the smaller size of the dilated veins which are there. Anything else? You are not told anything about the venous ulcer which is there.
So vein.
That is a very yeah. You have to.
So site of the
So you have to
venous ulcer.
describe. Yeah. So what are the things you are going to tell in an ulcer? Any ulcer which is there.
So first
This is probably one of the most important finding in this patient. Yeah.
duration, site, and the size.
No
Size
examination.
So examination will
Examination.
for the size of the ulcer, extent, and the floor of the ulcer, age, margins, and the any pigmentation or scarred area around the ulcer, and discharge.
So all those things has to be described in this patient. That what is the number of the ulcers which are there? What is the site of the ulcer? What is the size of the ulcer? Is there any discharge? What is the floor of the ulcer? Then you have to palpate the base of the ulcer. All those things has to be told about the venous ulcer. Anything else you could have told? You know what is ABPI?
Yeah, arterial ankle brachial pressure index.
Ankle brachial pressure index. So if you have the facility for that, will you do this test, clinical test or not? In a case of varicose veins,
So I will do to know the any
it should be done.
yes. Sir.
Why you want to do that?
So to know the any peripheral arterial disease present or not, to apply the elastic compression bandage over the ulcer.
Sure. So to if you are giving the patient the compression stocking, and that is the usual treatment for the varicose veins. So if the ABPI is, what is the normal ABPI?
Sub 0.9 to 1.1.
0.9 to 1.1 is the normal ABPI. And if you find that in your patient it is less than 0.8 is there, then you have to give the compression stocking of the low grade.
Low blood pressure.
Normally, when you are applying the compression stocking, it is depending upon what is the SEEP classification for that. The normal pressure which is given is around 20 to 30 millimeter of mercury. But in the patients where the patient has got any chance of ischemia which is there, means ABPI is less, then in those cases you will not give such a high pressure. So you give a low pressure stockings, or you will not give the patient the stockings, because that can precipitate the ischemia. So that is the importance of taking the ABPI in a patient with the varicose veins.
So, sir, if it is 0.5 to 0.8, then which pressure will be? What pressure of the compression
You
band is
will
applied?
either you will not apply the compression stocking in those patients, and even if you think that it may be of some beneficial, you may give only 10 to 20 millimeter mercury here. Go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay.
Left,
So your diagnosis is
left lower limb varicose vein affecting great saphenous venous system with the venous ulcer without deep venous thrombosis. SIP class is C5, EP, A, SP, and PR.
tell what is C5 here.
C5 is Hild ulcer. EP is etiology is primary, and A in superficial and perforated are incompetence, and P pathophysiology is reflux.
Okay. So this is the C classification. And you know what is C classification?
Yes, sir.
What is what
So
is C?
C is clinical manifestation. E etiology, etiological, and A is
No, no.
anatomical.
What are the various components of the C?
So C0 is no venous diseases. C1 is any telangiectasia or reticular vein. C2 varicose vein. C3 edema. C4 is the skin or subcutaneous damage due to the varicose vein. That is C4A is pigmentation or eczema. C4B is lipodermatosclerosis and atrophic blanchet. C4C is corona phlebitis, and C5 is healed ulcer. C6 is non-healing ulcer, that is active ulcer.
And what about the recurrence?
So C6 are for the recurrent non-healing ulcer, and C2 are for the recurrent varicose vein.
So this is the latest classification.
Yes, sir.
This classification is 2020 classification for the C, where few things are added. One is the recurrence. Recurrence was not there in the prior classification of the C, but it has been added. And second thing is about the corona phlebitis, which is there. When in the last classification, where was the corona phlebitis? It was C1. It was thought only as like a spider of the reticular veins. So that was the C1 at that time. But it was found that this corona is usually associated with an advanced disease. Means these patients who have got the corona, they are very likely to have the ulceration of the foot is there. So that is why it has been now taken into the C4C classification. So this is advanced venous disease. What do you understand with CVI? Anybody can tell what is CVI? Gargi, is she there? Gargi Sinha?
Yes, sir.
You know what is CVI?
No, sir.
CVI is chronic venous insufficiency. Chronic venous insufficiency. And usually the CVI is C3 onwards. Okay, so in the C classification, C3 onwards. So C3, 4, 5, 6 are taken as the chronic venous insufficiency. Up to C2, it is called as the varicose veins. Okay. But some people say that no, all the veins, if it is there, they are like the chronic venous insufficiency. But the usual thing is the chronic venous insufficiency is from C3 to C6, while the varicose veins are up to C2 only. Okay. So what are you going to do for this patient? Anybody else who can tell? Ananya?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tell.
So what the investigation
And
for the
you can
treatment?
switch off. Komal, you can take off the slides now. Unshare that. Okay. Tell.
So the investigations or the treatment, sir?
Investigations बेटा. Investigation पूछ रहे हैं ना. कोई
So
भी एक
color
investigation
Doppler.
बता दो.
We can go for
Color
ultrasound and Doppler. Yes, sir.
So the most important investigation for a varicose vein is to carry out not the color Doppler. You will carry out the duplex scan. So you will say the duplex scan. So tell what is duplex scan?
Sir, in
Dhirendra?
duplex scan, we can check the flow and direction of flow and reflux.
Divyoti Samadar. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Open your video. So what do you understand by duplex scan?
So, duplex scan, we make the patient stand and then ask him to stand.
Okay, anybody else who can tell what is duplex scan?
So,
Sir, a duplex scan
It is
measures
when
the direction of flow of a fluid as per the direction of the ultrasound probe. So if it moves away, it is displayed in a different color, and if it moves towards the probe, it moves in it is displayed in a different color.
No, why? You understand duplex? Duplex में कितनी चीजें होती हैं?
so it is when we do UHT and color Doppler together.
Right. So that is the answer for that. That when you do a ultrasound and a Doppler study together. So ultrasound study usually which is done here is the B mode ultrasound. So when you combine the B mode ultrasound with a Doppler, this is called as duplex. Okay. So the ultrasound will see for the anatomical things, while the Doppler will look at the physiological things. Now, can anybody tell that how does you understand the Doppler principle?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Sir, Doppler principle says that when any object moves away from us, it is red shift, and when any object come closer to us, it is blue shifted.
It is not. That's not the Doppler principle. Doppler principle is that when the sound waves are thrown over any object, they are always reflected. And that reflection which is there, how do you know in the cricket is going on, and how do they know that this bowler has thrown the ball at the speed of 140 or 100 or 80? How do they know that?
So there is a frequency change in the waves.
So, yeah, so they apply the Doppler. Okay, the same thing here. They throw the ultrasonic waves and see that how much the reflection is there. And by that reflection, they can calculate that what is the speed of that object which came there. Okay, so is that same principle here used when you are looking for any blood vessels? Now, what thing which is there in the blood which will reflect the waves?
So
Like you are putting
blood cells.
cells. Okay, yeah, red cells. You know? So there are plenty of red cells are there. And in the red cells, what is there?
So iron.
Yes, hemoglobin is there. And in the hemoglobin, the heme is there. And in the heme is the iron is there. Okay, so that iron which is there is reflecting those waves. Okay. So when you're doing a study for the arterial or the venous disease which is there, you carry out the duplex scan and you see in the duplex scan that what is the anatomy of that particular vein which is there and what is the flow of the blood in that. So in the case of varicose veins, what findings will be there? You know, what finding will be there in the varicose veins? Anatomically, what you can see?
Dilated and tortuosity.
Yes,
Dilated and tortuosity can be
right.
seen,
You
and
can get the
reflux can be seen.
right. So you can see for the dilatation of the vein, the tortuosity of the vein will be there, and the reflux which is there you can see. And then in the deep veins, you can see for the thrombosis. Okay, if anybody asks you that in the duplex scan, if you want to see one thing, what you will like to see? If you have to
So for
see just one thing,
thrombosis,
you would like to see for the deep vein thrombosis. So one thing if you have to see on duplex scan, it is only the check for the patency of the deep veins, whether the deep veins they are patent or they are not patent. Because the treatment of the varicose veins depends on the patency of the deep veins. Because if deep veins are not patent, then in that case, you will not do any ablation for the superficial veins. Otherwise, the patient may have the venous gangrene, because now there is no outflow of the blood from the limbs which is there. So the patient is likely to have the venous gangrene. And that is why you have to check in every case about the deep veins, whether they are patent or not. So that is the most important thing. Other things which are there, what you want to see is the reflux. Okay. Now, how do you say this is incompetent? Saphenofemoral junction.
So there is a black
the
flow.
blood flow from above down.
Yeah, so there will be reversal of the flow will be there. No? And this reversal, if it is more than 500 milliseconds, if it is more than 500 milliseconds, then that is labeled as that it is an incompetent valve. Similarly, to say whether the perforator is incompetent or not, if it is more than 300 milliseconds, and you also see for the defect in the deep fascia. This defect should be more than 3 millimeters to say that this is a incompetent perforator. What other investigations can be done?
So for the ulcer, we can take biopsy.
You can take a biopsy if you are suspecting. Like
Marshallian
sometimes
ulcers.
you may suspect the patient has got
Marginal ulcer.
marginal ulcer. Then in those cases, you can take a biopsy. Oh, is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So we'll just a brief lecture over the varicose veins. As you know that varicose veins are basically the enlarged dilated veins. And you have to see for the three systems here. You have to see for the, you can listen me, na?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Right. And you can see the screen also.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So basically it can be superficial system, or it can be a deep venous system, or it can be the perforator veins which connect the superficial to the deep veins. So it may be the long saphenous system which is there, or it may be short saphenous system. And then in the deeper one is the popliteal vein and the femoral vein which is there. So if you see on the medial side here, this is the long saphenous, and on the calf region you will see for the short saphenous system. And then you can have the perforator veins which connect from the deep veins to the superficial veins. There can be the direct perforators can be there, or there can be the indirect perforators. The direct perforators are where there is a direct perforator like this, which is there. This is a direct perforator, but sometimes what can happen, that there may be multiple small veins may be there. Into that, one veins open and it drains to the other side. That is the indirect perforator. So the direction of the blood flow is from superficial to the deep veins. There are walls which are there, and once there is a reversal of the flow is there, then this is called as the incompetent perforator. Now this is very important. You must know that these cocket perforator which are there, what I was telling, 5, 10, and 15 centimeter at this point here, on the medial side of the leg, they are situated not on the greater saphenous vein. They are not over the GSV, but they are situated on the posterior arch vein. So this is the great saphenous vein which is there. So they are not situated over here, but they are situated over the posterior arch vein which connects the great saphenous vein. So that you must know. And then there are so many perforators which are there, but you have to mainly look for the perforator at this point here, a saphenofemoral incompetence at this point, and these perforators which are there are of clinical importance. And that is why when you do the multiple tourniquet test, these perforators has to be taken into consideration. Then there are venous walls which are there. Okay, so these venous walls, they get damaged, so they do not prevent the blood flow coming from up down here, and that is why you get what is called as the venous hypertension. And this venous hypertension which is there is the main culprit for all the pathology which is occurring in the chronic venous insufficiency. So once there is a chronic venous hypertension is there, because the immobility, because the calf muscle pump failure, because the deep vein occlusion, because the superficial venous reflux, because the deep venous reflux, because the obesity and the dependency, they all lead to the chronic venous hypertension. And ultimately, this chronic venous hypertension leads to all the features of the CVI, which is means the patient having the edema, patient having the pigmentation, the patient having the lipodermatosclerosis, the patient having the active ulcer or the healed ulcer. All these are the features of the chronic venous hypertension. Now, there are various risk factors. So, these risk factors which are there, they are for the primary type of the varicose veins. But few like the deep vein thrombosis which is there, or a pregnancy which is there, they are for the secondary. So, what are the various risk factors for the varicose veins? The female gender is itself a risk factor. The lifestyle, if the patient is having the prolonged standing or is sitting. So even the doctors who are carrying out, especially the surgeons who are carrying out the prolonged surgery, are at the risk of the varicose veins. And then obesity, pregnancy, the deep vein thrombosis, and age itself. As the age advances, there are more chances of having the varicose veins. And then it can also occur in the family, and there a tall height is also one of the reasons for the venous hypertension. And there are several syndromes which are there, like especially the crippled Trenaunay syndrome, which is there, one of the commonest syndrome in the case of the varicose veins. So these are various clinical features: the pain, heaviness, edema, itching, discoloration, ulceration. And you should know about this. So telangiectasia is the spider vein, which is of less than 1 millimeter in size. Okay, like this one will be called as a telangiectasia or the spider vein. Now this one, which is a slightly bigger one, which is there, is the reticular vein, which is 1 to 3 millimeter in size. And these are the varicose veins when they're more than 3 millimeters in diameter. So these three types of the veins which are there. So the corona which is there, phlebitis, will be coming in this one here, either in the spider veins or in the reticular veins. And this, I told you about the Saphenous varix. Now this is a swelling here in this area, and you may think it is a hernia. It is like a femoral hernia, but it is not a femoral hernia. It is giving the cuff impulse, but this is a Saphenous varix. So you always see in the lower part that does the patient has got the varicosity of the veins or not. There can be several complications may be there. The patient may come to you with a bleed, pigmentation, eczema, dermatitis, periosteitis, venous ulcers. The long-standing venous ulcer can change into the squamous cell carcinoma, that is a margin ulcer, lipodermatosclerosis, the talipes equinovarus type of the deformity may be there. The patient may develop the DVT because of the varicose veins, and then there can be recurrent thrombophlebitis may be there with the varicose veins. So you can see this is like a varicose ulcer which is there, but once it becomes like this ulcer here, you have to take a biopsy to prove that this is a case of squamous cell carcinoma. So ulcer converting into the squamous cell carcinoma is the margin ulcer. And we have discussed about all these tests which are there. You do the Trendelenburg test 1, 2, Perthes, tourniquets, Schwartz test, Fagan test. All these tests we have discussed. Other examination, you have to carry out definitely the abdominal examination to see for any pelvic mass or anything. You have to always examine the ulcer of the patient and for any lymph nodes which are palpable or not. So in any case of infection may be there, the patient may have the palpable lymph nodes. So this is the SEEP classification. We have discussed about that. The SEEP classification, C which is there, E, A, P. We have discussed about that. And you can see now, this is C0, means there is no veins which are there. This is C1, where there are small veins which are there, reticular or the spider veins which are there. This is C2, that there are more than 3 millimeter size is there. C3, that there is the edema of the limb is there. C4A, that there is pigmentation or there may be atrophy may be there. And this is the lipodermatosclerosis which may be there. And the C4C, which has been added, is the phlebitis which is there. And C5 is a healed ulcer which is there. And C6, which is a active ulcer is there. So these are in 2020, the SEEP classification has been revised. And in this at C2, the C2R is added. That is the recurrent varicose veins. In C4C, this is the corona. Okay, so you can see the small veins which are there in this area. That is called as the corona phlebitis, which is there. And this is advanced disease. So this is C4C. And then in the C6, again, there is a recurrence. So C6R is added. So these are in the 2020 classification of SEEP, the things which has been added now. And then another thing which has been added in the E, which is there, is whether it is an intravenous disease which is there. This is called a ESI, and whether it is extravenous. Extravenous means there are certain syndromes which are there, like there's a May-Thurner syndrome is there, where the vein is pressed by the artery. So different types of syndromes which are there. Nutcracker syndrome is there, where the renal vein is compressed. So in those cases, you will label it as a ESE, means extravenous, while intravenous means that there is problem in the inside the veins which is there. So that is a change in the E status in the SEEP 2020. And then in the SEEP 2020, now we call it as, initially we used to number that 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But now it is like the GSV A, which means great saphenous vein above the knee. GSV B means great saphenous vein below the knee. SSV means small saphenous vein. So now you give these suffix for all those things rather than giving the numbers in the new SEEP classification. Okay, so these are various nomenclatures for that. There is no change in the P which is there. So there is a change in the C is there, E, A, but not in the P which is there. P remains the same. So these are the changes which has occurred in the recent classification. The C4C has been added as the corona like this. Recurrence has been added the C2R or C6R in the active venous ulcer. Then we have in the E is the extravenous disease or the intravenous disease. A is according to anatomical. Now we do not number that, but we say like GSV A or GSV B, and P remains the same. So these are the various changes which has occurred in the new classification of the SEEP in the 2020. So what are the investigations which you have to carry out on the varicose veins? You have to localize the anatomical location. You have to see what is the nature of the lesion, and you have to definitely rule the DVT. That is the most important thing which I discussed about that. The DVT is probably the only one thing which you want to really see on the Doppler, whether it is present or not. So the duplex scan, basically, it is a Doppler combined with B-mode ultrasound. It looks for the anatomical and the functional information, and you have to rule out the DVT in all these cases. The other investigation which can be carried out, which I was just asking, that you can carry out the plethysmography, you can carry out the ambulatory venous studies, you can carry out the venography, and you can carry out the intravascular ultrasound. And this is called the IVUS, IVUS, intravascular ultrasound. Now, these investigations which are there, they are only done either only for the research purpose, or they are carried out if there is a possibility of any deep venous reflux is there. So clinically, if there is any deep venous reflux is there, then you carry out all these studies like the venography and the intravascular ultrasound. But otherwise, these tests are not carried out. The only most important test which is there is the duplex scan. So what are the treatment options for the varicose veins? You can go for the compression stockings, which comes in the different pressure range. You can go for the medical treatment. You can go for the lifestyle changes. You can carry out the surgical treatment, or you can carry out the endovenous treatment, which may be a thermal type of the endovenous ablation, or it can be non-thermal type. Thermal means that where there is a heat production is there, while in the non-thermal there is no heat production. So you can carry out these non-thermal type of the ablations for is high frequency ultrasound. So here it is called as a non-invasive. This is still in the experimental phase, not available every place. So for the examination purpose, if you have to say, this is the most important thing. The thermal type of endovenous ablation, which is usually because of the radio frequency ablation you can use, or you can use the laser. So from the examination point of view, you have to tell that if you want to do any minimal access treatment for the varicose veins, this is the thermal endovenous ablation, either because of you can use the radio frequency ablation, or you can use the laser treatment for that. Now, conservative treatment, the strapping and the stockings which are there are most important. You give the pressure about 30 to 40 millimeters, but you can reduce the pressure. Now, this, when you say is 30 to 40 millimeter, this may be graduated pressure may be there. So at this point here, at the ankle here, you may have the pressure of 30, 40, But as you go up, this pressure starts becoming less. So here it may be 30, here it may be 20. So this is called a graduated compression stockings for the purpose of the varicose veins. Then there are several other types of the compression stockings. The Una boot was in the past, which was being very commonly used for the treatment, especially for the venous ulcer, not for the varicose veins, but mainly for the venous ulcer. And then you can use the, nowadays is the 4-layer dressing and the 2-layer dressing, which is for the venous ulcer mainly, where you give the 2-layer dressing and the 4-layer dressing for the management of the venous ulcer. Now, what are the various medications which can be used? Is the flavonoids. Okay, we very commonly know the Daflon, which is there. You can use the calcium dobislate, you can use the diasmin, and many other Ayurvedic preparations are there which can be used. But from the examination point of view, just remember the flavonoids as the Daflon and the calcium dobislate. Now, what are the various surgical treatments which are there? The commonest surgical treatment for the varicose veins, if it is of the great saphenous system, is the tendon-mug operation. So here you do a flush ligation of the saphenofemoral junction, and you take care of these tributaries which are there. And these 3 main tributaries which are there, the superficial circumflex iliac, the superficial external pudendal, and superficial epigastric vein. So these are 3 most important veins which you have to take care when you're carrying out the flush ligation or the tendon-mug operation. Then you do the stripping of the veins also along with the tendon-mug operation. And this stripping should not be done in the leg, because if you do this stripping in the leg, then there is a chance of nerve injury to the saphenous vein, because saphenous vein nerves runs very closely to the great saphenous vein. So you should not do this stripping in the leg, but it had to be done only in the thigh up to the knee joint. And the commonest stripper which is used, this is called the Meyer stripper, is used for the stripping of the long saphenous vein. Then for the perforator incompetence, you can do, this is now a controversy whether the perforator should be treated or not. But if you have to treat the perforators, you can do the subfacial ligation of the perforators. You can do the stab avulsion of the perforators. And in the past, we used to have the SEPS. Though it is an endoscopic perforator surgery, but it is very complicated. And that is why it is no more used. But you must know, because it can come in the examination, that what is SEPS. SEPS is basically the subfacial endoscopic perforator surgery, where with the help of the scope, you go underneath the fascia here and you take care of the perforators which are there, like the Cockett perforator which is there, you ligate the perforator. But nowadays, this is no more used treatment for the perforators now. Then you can have the thermal ablation. This is the commonest treatment which is used for the varicose veins, and this is called the endovenous treatment. Now, why it is called as thermal, I told you, because there is a production of the heat is there. So you can use the radio frequency ablation. You can use the EVLA, means endovenous laser ablation. Endovenous laser ablation. You can use the steam therapy for that, for the thermal ablation. And in all these cases, you have to use this tumescent anesthesia which is there. This tumescent anesthesia is the type of anesthesia where you inject around the veins the normal saline along with some anesthetic agents, and the adrenaline is added to that, so that it compresses the vein. And by compression of the vein, the diameter of the vein becomes less. So these modalities will have a better effect. And second is that it separates it from the nerves which are there. And it also separates from the skin, because these patients can have the skin burn, they can have the nerve injury, and the patient may have, in the post-operative period, there may be neuropraxia may be there in these patients. So for that purpose, you always use the tumescent anesthesia when you're doing the thermal ablation. And this is the endovenous laser ablation, which is the commonest one. This is called as the EVLT or EVLA. EVLT means ablation here, and the T means the therapy. This is done under the ultrasound guidance, and when you're passing this thing which is here, this end should be at least 1 to 2 centimeter proximal to the saphenofemoral junction. The laser tip which is there, it should be at least 1 to 2 centimeter proximal to the saphenofemoral junction, because if it is close to that, there's a chance of having the deep vein thrombosis, and this is sometimes called as the E-HIT, endovenous heat-induced thrombosis. Endovenous heat-induced thrombosis. That is called the E-HIT. The common laser fiber which is used is the diode laser which is there, which is of 980 size, 1470 size, and 1920 size. But the commonest one which is used is the 1470. This was in the past which was being used, and there are very few persons who have got this machine here. So the commonest machine which is used is the 1470 diode laser machine. There are several complications which I told you, that there may be pain and ecchymosis may be there, hematoma formation, the skin burn and the nerve burn, neuropraxia may be there, and it can lead to what is called the E-HIT or the deep vein thrombosis. Now, sclerotherapy is another very important. Sclerotherapy initially was used only for the small and the recurrent varices, but now it can be used also for the main truncal varicosities. And you can use the ultrasound guided foam sclerotherapy for the main trunks. So for the great saphenous vein or for the small saphenous vein, you can use the sclerotherapy. And this sclerotherapy which is used is nowadays used in what is called the foam sclerotherapy. Okay, this is the foam sclerotherapy. Foam means you are making a foam, and this foam is made of the solution which is there. The common solution which is used is the sodium tetradecysulfate and the polydocanol. This is mixed with the air, and you make a foam of that. And mixing of this liquid with the air is called as the Tessari method. So this method you should remember. Someone can ask you that what is Tessari method? Tessari method is a method where you combine the liquid with mainly the air, or sometimes the CO2 can be also used for that, to make a foam of that. And majority of the time for the varicose veins, we are giving the foam sclerotherapy. These are various sclerosants which are there. I told you sodium tetradecysulfate and the polydocanol are the main which are used for the sclerotherapy. And then there's a new technique, what is called the CLACS. CLACS. It stands for cryo laser and cryosclerotherapy. Now this CLACS is mainly for the reticular veins, the small veins which are there. You can use the CLACS mainly for the cosmetic purpose. And this CLACS consists of that you first do under the local anesthesia, you carry out the cryo cooling. So by lessening the temperature, it all makes the pain-free zone here. So it gives the anesthesia, because the cryo, you do the augmented reality, which means that you enlarge under a instrument which is there, which has got the infrared light, so you can see the dilated veins. You give the patient the Nd:YAG treatment here. Okay. Normally, when you are doing the treatment for the varicose veins, it is by the diode laser. But here you are using the Nd:YAG laser. So you give the transcutaneous. You are not puncturing anything, but it is a transcutaneous laser is given. And then you can also add to that is a sclerotherapy. So the same sclerotherapy, which is like the sodium tetradecysulfate or the polydocanol or even the dextrose, can be used for the sclerotherapy. So this is a new technique which is there. This is called a CLACS technique. And then there are other newer treatments which are there. Is the glue. You can use the cyanoacrylate glue for the treatment of the main veins. you can use what is called the MOCA. This is a mechanico-chemical ablation. And these are called a non-thermal technique because they are not emitting any heat by their treatment. And that is why you do not require the tumescent anesthesia here. In the case of thermal one, you have to always give the tumescent anesthesia. But when you're using the glue treatment or the MOCA treatment, you do not use any tumescent anesthesia. And then, as I told you, the recent one is the HIFU, high frequency ultrasound, where with the help of the high frequency of the ultrasound, you can take care of the varicose veins without puncturing anything in the skin. So from the superficial only, so this is almost non-invasive technique, where you are with the help of the ultrasound, you can take care of the varicose veins. Okay. Any question to ask? Any query? Okay, if none, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.